Right, guys, so we're done with equation with quadratic. Well, we're done, I say we're done, but we'll come back to them even today, but not in the beginning. The main thing, the starting point is we have equation with fractions. Now, this level, in fact, we've done last year. Okay, so the beginning of this lesson is just a recap from last year. I think this is probably the easiest one. What do you reckon we should do? We obviously, the instruction is solve for x.
Move the 1 over.
Don't you times the 2?
Correct. You want to time the 2.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so we want to time 2, both sides by 2. So that's going to cancel that 2. So we're going to have x minus 2 equal?
Negative 2.
Negative 2. And then
Plus 2.
add 2 to get rid of that minus 2. X equal? 0. Done.
Oh, so here you don't have 2 answers.
No.
Okay, that's better.
Yeah, our first part of the lesson, we're not going to have 2 answers. When do we have 2 answers?
Quadratic.
What does quadratic mean?
4.
Yeah, but how do you know if an equation is quadratic? What is the side? This is not quadratic,
X
but
squared.
there's a square. There's an x squared up somewhere. There's a square on top of the x. Here, there's nothing, no square on the x. So, okay, good observation. So that's very easy. Okay. Now this stuff may be a bit trickier, but still we've done that. We've done that.
So can I give my or what I think would
Yeah.
So you move the 6x to the other side, sir.
You could.
And then because now this is going to be on this side, but doesn't that mean that you can also just put equals here on the end?
Yes. And then what will we do?
And then lowest common.
Lowest common denominator.
Yeah.
So Luana suggests let's move it to the right and then find the lowest common denominator. Absolutely fine. But we can also do it from the beginning. Eventually we'll have to find the lowest common denominator. It doesn't matter when you do it, but you need to find the lowest common denominator. I'm going to go with what you said. So we're going to do minus 6 over x. So we're going to get 0, 3 over 2x, minus 6 over x, minus a quarter. Okay, we can do that. Now we're going to find the lowest common denominator. What's the lowest common denominator? 2x. It's 4x, you're right. It has to have a 4 there. 2 is not going to, 2 fits in the 4, but 4 doesn't fit in the 2. So it has to have a 4 and it has to have the x. The lowest common denominator is 4x, and I'm going to pause here because I'm expecting questions. Okay, so we established that the lowest common denominator is 4x. Now, from this 3 was sitting on top of 2x. Now he's going to sit on 4x. So what do I need to multiply it by? 2. So I'm going to get 6. This 6 was sitting on top of the x. Now he's on top of 4x. So we need to multiply by 4. So minus 24. Okay? This 4, this one sit on 4. Now he's in 4x. You're right. I need to multiply the 1 by x. So it's going to be minus x.
Can you also write minus 1x?
Yes. No problem. Okay? Now, I'm going to just rewrite this. 0 equal 4x. 6 minus 24 is? Minus 18. Minus 6. Now, what should I do?
Now you can times by 4 on the other side. 4x.
4x. I want to get rid of the denominator. So I'm going to multiply by 4x. Okay? There's still something that I need to do here, but I'll come to that in a second. Okay? Okay? I'll multiply both by 4x. Okay? So what is 0 times 4x? 0. See, that's why it's quite good to have a 0 here. So what we're going to get, minus 18, minus x.
Now you move the 18 over. Can you?
Well, you can move the 18, but then you're stuck with a minus x. And I want to have a plus.
Oh, and then you just take the
then
minus.
You can do the minus. That's fine. But I would rather just add the x. Move the x to the other side. So we're going to get x equal minus 18.
Alright.
Okay, which is the solution. Okay? We alright with that?
But you can also do the...
You can do it. Then there will be 2 steps. There is one thing we forgot to mention here, and I don't know if you remember it from last year. I'll try and remind you. When the x is at the bottom, there is something that I need to say. Yes.
X can't be 0.
X can't be 0. So already, I couldn't say it in the beginning, or normally I do it when I get rid of that 4x. I must say here, x must not equal to 0. Why is that? Yes, Leo.
Because you can't divide.
Exactly. If x was 0, they have 0 in denominator, and then we're in trouble. We have an undefined number. So we must write that. Now, why must we write it? I'll try and find you another example where it is more crucial, because I need to compare it to the solution. The solution in this case is minus 18. Is minus 18 the same as 0? Obviously not. So that is a good solution. Okay? But I'm going to try and give you another example where it is a problem. Okay? I'll just pause here. Okay, so let's have a look at this one. And actually, at this point, I don't want to move everything to the same side.
No.
You'll see why in a second. I will do that later. Let's just find the lowest common denominator straight away. What's the lowest common denominator? 2x. Okay? So it's going to be something 2x, 2x. What must I multiply the 3 by?
3.
By 2. Because he was sitting on an x, now he's sitting on 2x. Can you see? 6 over 2x is the same as 3 over x. Okay? The 1 I need to multiply also by 2. Okay? The 2 I need to divide, multipy by also 2. Because he's sitting on x before he's sat on 2x.
X.
Plus 5x.
But so if you multiply 2 by 2, then it's not going to be 2. So
You're right. Okay. Now let's rewrite it again. 4 over 2x equal 4 plus 5x over 2x.
can you move it over now? Sir?
No. Before we move it, what shall we do? Multiply by? We want to get rid of the 2x. Okay? So we're going to multiply by the 2x. Okay? Yeah?
Can we cross cancel? 2.
Those two?
Yes.
Well, if this one you definitely can't. Why can't you cross cancel this? But the problem is if you cross cancel that, now you don't have the same denominator.
okay.
So that the whole idea is we want to have the same denominator. Okay? So we're going to have 4 equal 4 plus 5x.
Yeah.
I'm going with you. Anything else I need to do now? Do I need to do anything else, Junaid? Before I go on there, is there something that I should have done here? Yes?
X can't be 0.
Ah, well done, Buzu, okay? Remember, when I get, just a second before I get rid of that 2x, before I forget about it, let's just must say that x must not be equal to 0. Because again, if x is 0, we have 0 in denominator. It's not that x must never be 0. X can be 0 sometime, but you can't have 0 in denominator. That's the problem, okay? You'll see why I'm expressing that later. It's not that x can never be 0. X can sometimes be 0, but in this case, it can't, because then we have 0 in denominator. Okay, so we just highlighted it. Okay, let's go with the flow. What shall I do now?
Now you move the 4.
Move the 4. Okay, so 5x equal to
0.
0. What's the solution?
Yeah.
X equals 0. Okay, what do we do now?
But x can't be 0.
X can't be 0. We found through this bit that x should be 0. But luckily for us, Buzu is here and reminded us that we must write x is not equal to 0. So what do we do in this case? Remember?
Undefined.
No solution.
No solution. We just say no solution.
Can you also say undefined?
No. Okay. What you're coming to terms here, and you already saw it because we've done that stuff last year, is that not all equations have solutions. Some equations don't have a solution. Okay. So that's why, to answer your question before, Twenga and Olwano, you have to write that. In this case, you wouldn't have lost mark because it turns out there was a solution. But if you didn't write this here, Buzwe didn't remind us to write it here, and you said x equals 0, you will lose your mark.
Oh, so now if x does equal 0 and you don't write it, then you'll get wrong.
You know, you don't even need to write it. You could just think it, and then realize, as long as you write no solution, you'll get the mark.
Oh, so no, you don't actually have to write that then.
As long as you remember that in this case, there won't be solution. So you should write it, that's what I'm trying to say. Yes, Janet.
So if you see there, if x is at the bottom, from the top, you already say x cannot equal 0.
Yeah, you can say from the beginning, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
still good.
you could write, Junaid is asking, can we just write down here x not equal to 0? You can see it, you can't be equal 0. Now, I just want to quickly show you how we could have solved that so quickly before, okay? But I wouldn't recommend you to do it, but just to show you now. In fact, we didn't really need to find the lowest common denominator. Check, do you want to tell me, what is 3 over x minus 1 over x?
2 over x.
That's 2 over x. So I can rewrite this thing as 2 over x equal 2 over x plus 5 over 2. Now, what could I do now? Without getting rid, I can move it to the other side, right? So I'll minus 2 over x. 2 over x minus 2 over x is 0. What do I have left on the other side? 5 over 2. Is 0 equal to 5 over 2? So in this case, if you ever get to an equation where you have one number on the other side you have a different number, then obviously there's no solution. Doesn't matter what x you choose, there's just not going to be any
So
solution.
it doesn't matter what answer you get as soon as your.
I'll just pause it. You think what you want to say. Okay, so far what we've done was really grade 9, repeated grade 9. We didn't really add anything to grade 9. Now, it's not just that we have x's at the bottom, we actually have x squared. So straight in our mind, how many solutions might be expecting to? There might be 2 solutions. Might have 2 solutions, okay? So be aware of that. Now, the idea is, let's go with the same recipe. Then let's get everything to the left. It's not essential. You saw some exercise where some stuff stayed on the other side, okay? And then the idea is basically to find the lowest common denominator. But just for the sake of doing everything kind of the same, let's move this one to this side. So it will be 7x over x squared plus x minus 5 over x minus 3 over x plus 1 equal 0. Again, we could have actually left him there, but it doesn't matter. Now, what's the next thing to do with these fractions? What are we looking for? Lowest common denominator. Now, let's just pause here for a second. If I have 1 over 5 plus 2 over 3, what will be the lowest common denominator? 15, right? I'm not going to even worry about that one. How do we know it? We do 5 times 3, yeah? We happy with that? What about if we had 1 over 2, no, 1 over 4 plus 5 over 6. What will be the lowest common denominator? 12, okay? So, because 4 and 6, okay, are not, how do you call each other? They have a common factor, then we're not just going to multiply them together to get 24. We're looking for a number that will be multiple of both of them. Okay? The same thing goes here. Now, when you look at x and x plus 1, okay, the lowest common denominator, we just have to multiply. Do you understand that? So if I forget about that for a second, if I just try and find the lowest common denominator of these things, it will be like this. It will be just x times x plus 1. Can you see that? Because they don't have a common factor. Now, are we going to also multiply it now by x squared plus x? We could, but we will make our life really, really difficult. Yes, what do you suggest? I'll just pause to hear what your suggestions are because the video is going. Right, so you guys clicked. You guys figured it out that it will be madness of me to multiply by x squared plus x because actually x squared plus x is made out of these two. Okay? What does Luana tell us? Let's take a common factor out. Okay? Let's take the x out. Okay? So if I take the x out, what will I have in the brackets?
X plus 1.
X plus 1, which is exactly already there. So we don't need to multiply again by x times x plus 1. That is our lowest common denominator. That is the lowest common denominator. Ryan, you want to ask something? I'll just pause. Hang on. Okay. So now we're going to ask ourselves, okay, that's the lowest common denominator. On this other side, we can just have 0. I mean, if you want to write 0 divided by x plus 1, you can, but it's 0 anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So if you ever have 0, you don't need to bother putting on the common denominator. Okay? Now, this one's already have x plus x times x plus 1. So what will happen to the 7x? Stay the same. Okay? Now, this one went from x to that. So what must we multiply the minus 5? By x plus 1. He was already on top of the x, now he's also on top of x plus 1. So we need to multiply by x plus 1. Notice that I remember the minus. Don't forget that minus. Okay? And then the minus 3, what must he be multiplied? By x. Because he was sitting on x plus 1, now he's also sitting on the x, so we need to multiply by x. Okay? Right, now everything is one big fraction sitting on one denominator. What should we do? What's our next step? Time by x times x plus 1. Now it is useful not to open it. Don't open this yet. Because at the same time, what else must we say with a red pen?
X equal account to 0.
Okay, this is what I was trying to prep you here. It's not that x necessarily has to be 0. What's the problem is that we don't want the 0 denominator. We don't want 0 in denominator. Blah, 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 blah. Okay? So what should x not be?
0.
X must not be equal to 0, or There's another thing it can be.
Minus 1.
It can't be minus 1 as well. Look, if I put x equal minus 1 plus 1 is 0. So you see, that's why I was trying to get you. It's not that x, it's always 0. We're not obsessed with 0. We are obsessed with 0, but not about x. It's the denominator that must not be 0. So in this case, it's x must not be 0 or minus 1. Okay? I'll pause that. I'll
But so you said that x must not equal.
it must, yes, actually must not equal yes. Okay? Right, now we're going to multiply it. You already said, so I'm going to just free that. By multiplying this by the denominator, we're getting rid of the denominator. So we're going to write 7x. Can we open this whilst we do it? So what should I write?
5
Minus
negative
5x
5x squared
Negative
plus 5.
5.
Negative 5, not x squared, just 5x. Okay? Okay?
Minus 3.
Minus 3x equals 0. Okay?
2x.
Group, sir.
Group. 2x, we've got 2x minus 3x is?
Minus x.
Minus
5
x
equals
minus
0.
5 equals 0. Which one should we move?
5.
I'll personally move the x. So
Make
move
the
the
x
x, so it'll be
positive.
positive, yeah? So x equal minus 5. If you want to move the minus 5, fine. You can say minus x
And then just get rid of the. Or just move
equal
over
5 and then get rid of the, so you can do that with that step if you want. But anyway, x equal minus 5. Now, what do I need to do?
No
Check.
solution.
Good solution.
Is this a legit solution?
Yes.
Yes. So we've got a solution. I'll pause here.